Penguin Random House Audio presents The Secret History of the Rape Kit, a True Crime Story by Pagan Kennedy. Read for you by Claire Danes. For the Survivors. Author's Note. As I wrote this book, I struggled to decide which words I should use to describe people who have been sexually assaulted. I'm aware that many advocates in the anti-rape community feel that the word survivor is a more respectful term than victim. However, in the criminal justice system, those who report sexual assaults are almost always called victims. And in Marty Goddard's time, the 1970s and 1980s, rape survivors were usually referred to as victims, which is why she named her nonprofit group the Citizens Committee for Victim Assistance. In the end, I decided to use the word victim whenever it seemed historically or technically appropriate. In all other cases, I used survivor. Throughout the book, the word women is used to refer to both cis and trans women. Part 1. Evidence. Chapter 1. One night in September 2018, I dreamt that I was standing in a courtroom, blinking in the bright lights, with microphones poking up all around me. I tried to speak, but my lips stuck together and my mouth felt crammed with dirt. When I tried to testify about what he'd done to me, all I could do was grunt. I was molested twice in my childhood. The second time it happened, I was tortured by a boy, someone I'll call Hunter, just a couple of years older than I was. In my teens and 20s, I wrestled with my memories of that summer day in the 1970s, when the cicadas hissed in the trees and Hunter pushed me through a hole in the hedges. By the time I was in my 30s, Hunter had vaulted himself into a high-level position as a Washington insider. He was involved with global politics, and he had helped to start a war. Still, I didn't speak out against him. What would it accomplish? For a long time, I tamped down my anger about what had been done to me as a child. If I mentioned the incident to a friend, I'd say, "That was years ago. I'm over it." My rage had always seemed greasy and salty, like something I binged on when I was alone, in fits of self-hatred. But then, in 2018, in the sweltering September of the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, I found myself flashing back to my childhood, and seized with anger so hot I felt feverish. I watched Dr. Christine Blasey Ford flinch in front of the microphones, her glasses sliding down her nose. She was struggling to stay calm as she described how, decades before, a boy had wrestled her onto a bed, clamped his hand over her mouth, and nearly suffocated her. Afterward, she locked herself in a bathroom and cowered in there until she heard him stumbling down the stairs. I felt as if she were telling my story too. I'd gone to the same high school as she had, at around the same time. Though I hadn't known her, I had worn the same blue tartan uniform she had. I'd hung out at the same kinds of parties, and feared the same kinds of boys. Like her, I had been a privileged girl who swam at the country club. And, like her, I had been the collateral damage. The future presidents, generals, CIA operatives, lobbyists, and justices had to learn how to dominate, how to be ruthless. And so when we were young, they trapped us in a room in a lovely suburb like Bethesda and practiced their craft on girls like us. And there had been no way to defend ourselves against those golden boys, the ones who could do no wrong. Still, we tried. Dr. Ford's testimony reminded me of how much I had thought about protecting myself from violence as a girl. Like young Christine, I'd often worn my swimsuit under my clothes. It wasn't so much a matter of convenience as an extra layer of safety to give me more time to run away if someone attacked. In the 1970s and 1980s, girls were warned that the threat of rape lurked all around us, and we had to learn how to defend ourselves. We knew all the rules. Don't walk alone in the city or in the woods or really anywhere. Don't drink at parties. Don't be too friendly with boys, and don't act cold or snooty. In our driver's ed classes, the teachers lectured us about how a car was in essence a rolling rape machine, and you should always check the back seat before you got in, because an attacker might be hiding there. We girls were put on notice that stairwells, laundry rooms, parking garages, running trails in parks, and the entire world after midnight were made by and for men. We were allowed to share these places, so long as we didn't get too comfortable in them. The warnings of sexual assault carried inside them an even more demoralizing and insidious message. This world is not for you. Now, in the aftermath of the Kavanaugh hearings, I found myself noticing all the man-made objects that seemed as if they'd been created specifically to allow men to get away with sexual assault. There were date rape drugs, stalkerware software, and car doors with driver-controlled locks. So much technology seemed to be devised to either encourage sexual assault or treat it as a tolerable inconvenience. But had anything ever been specifically invented to discourage sexual assault? My attention landed on an object I'd been aware of since my college years. The box that holds DNA evidence collected after a sexual assault, known colloquially as the rape kit. Until then, I hadn't given the rape kit much thought, but suddenly its existence struck me as both a miracle and a mystery, and I developed a feverish obsession. How could it be that a rape kit existed at all? Here was an object invented specifically to help a survivor prove that her attack had happened and to help identify the perpetrator. When the system worked, that is, when police departments tested the DNA swabs and looked for matches in the FBI's nationwide database, detectives could solve cases that sprawled across hundreds of miles. The Golden State Killer, Joseph DeAngelo, raped and murdered dozens of victims in a spree that had terrorized California in the 1980s. He was finally identified and captured in 2018 because a smidge of sperm in an evidence kit was tested decades after it was collected and found to match DNA taken from the suspect's car door handle and his trash. The more I thought about the rape kit, the more it seemed to be a wondrous device that entered our world from an alternate feminist universe. The technology seemed so threatening to powerful men that I wondered how it had ever come to be. It was part of a system designed, at least in theory, to be wielded equally against a multimillionaire, a media mogul, a Catholic bishop, or a cop. On the face of it, the kit was such a simple device, a cardboard box packed with envelopes for storing biological evidence collected during an examination of an accuser's body. Many kits also contained swabs, a doll-sized comb, nail clippers, and an instruction booklet to guide the forensic nurse who performs the exam and helps the survivor tell her story. The contents of the kit were mostly items you could buy at the drugstore. And yet, its design was a work of audacious genius. When used as intended, it could reveal the hidden path of a predator. And it could also prevent wrongful convictions of innocent men. The kit reminded me of Wonder Woman's golden lasso, the one that she used to wrangle criminals and force the truth out of them. It seemed imaginary, and yet it was real. I decided to hunt down the origins of the rape kit and find out who first dreamed up this forensic tool. The answer, I thought, might shed light on a bigger question that I'd been mulling over. How does a tool that empowers women ever get built in a man's world? I began by typing rape kit inventor into the search box, and that led me to a Wikipedia entry that said a Chicago police sergeant named Louis Vitullo had developed the first rape kit in the 1970s. This struck me as counterintuitive, because I knew that the Chicago Police Department had been notorious for its violence and sadism at that time. Officers had tormented black men and framed them for crimes, including rape. Why would this same police department have spearheaded the development of a new evidence system that had the potential to open.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?